As tensions grow between the world's two largest economies, the White House says a call this week between the U.S. president and China's leader is likely as it seeks to restore a fragile truce in the U.S.-China trade war. However, Trump described Xi Jinping as extremely hard to make a deal with. Elsewhere, after winning a tense election that capped months of political turmoil, new South Korean President Lee Jae-myung described his victory as the start of the country's return to normalcy, following the crisis sparked by the then conservative leader Yoon Suk-yeol's imposition of martial law in December. And I'm Salma Al-Fi'i, and this is In Focus. Tensions are rising between the world's two largest economies as the White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt recently stated that the U.S. President Donald Trump would speak with the Chinese President Xi Jinping this week to address disagreements over last month's tariff deal and broader trade issues. According to Time magazine, any upcoming conversation between the two leaders will likely focus on trade and China's new rare earths export restrictions and possibly education policy, given recent U.S. restrictions on Chinese students. However, Trump described Xi as tough and extremely hard to make a deal with, days after accusing China of violating the trade agreement to roll back tariffs and trade restrictions. China, in turn, says U.S. actions undermine the trade talks and harm its interests, while calling for dialogue based on mutual respect. Now let's move to a live conference of the Saudi Interior Ministry on the first day of Hajj.
Such readiness is a witness of the implementing the early readiness that launched on the 12th of the Hajj of the past year, starting by delivering the primary arrangement documents and the timetable of the program throughout the countries and passing the agreement that led more than 76 agreement by the attendance of 100 countries. Ministry of Hajj and Umrah affirms its readiness in Mecca and started by the beginning of Al-Qada that launched more through the latent centers in order to make sure it's matching to the standards, services and conditions, and that led the 97% commitment of the service provision companies. The seasonal readiness was elevated to the top level that reached 170 flow per hour, and with the cooperation of the Holy Mosque services, and also executed development project that targeted the improvement of the infrastructure, where the first phase of tents of 2 floors on an area of that exceeded 12,000 square meters in Mina's area. And with the cooperation of the Royal Authority of Mecca al-Mukarramah, and along with Sacred Rights, along with the Metanas Company for Development and Construction. In light of the development of the digital services, the Ministry of Hajj has launched a card of Nusuk along with Kalna. Nusuk card is an official document to authenticate the identification of a pilgrim through which that we can reach all the information in Mecca, Al Madinah, and all the ritual places. In this regard, I'd like to indicate that it is required for carrying a Nusuk card in all the places that would facilitate the work of the field servers in case of emergencies. To guarantee the readiness and the quality of services, the Al Hajj and Umrah system executed the virtual experiences in order to test all experiment in identifying the field determinant, and the Awareness Center of Pilgrims has contributed in conveying awareness and messages to elevate the level of awareness to the pilgrimage, where more than 20 languages of the pamphlet was printed and distributed in more than 200,000 of the awareness pamphlet, and all the messages of awareness were to be transmitted throughout thousands of screens throughout the ritual areas. Direct and orientation services throughout all the places were provided by the 36 center and 200 mobile point that contained more than 200,000 employees. Centers will receive all the inquiries through the contact, and the hotline is 1976 for more than 11 languages. Throughout the hours and during the weeks by more than 11 languages, and also the Nusuk's applications will provide more than 30 added services of today's pilgrimage season that will help to respond to all the pilgrimage inquiries and to provide all the awareness services by several languages with the ability of the audio and visual services. More than 3,000 volunteers work in different courses and present in the field for more than 107 of focal points. The Ministry of Hajj and Umrah reaffirms the necessity of the abide in all the identification schedules issued by the relevant authority, with the necessity of using the authenticated and the official transportation means, and to combine in the day of Arafat from the early hours in the morning till the 4 to 5 before the dawn. To conclude, I think the most greatest to have seen the happiness on the faces of the pilgrims and their expressions, and reflected of different cultures, and therefore the Kingdom is very eager to provide the best services in order to maintain such a smiling and joy on their faces till they go back to their homes. So we reiterate the welcome in all the pilgrims and worship, praying to the Almighty God to accept their rights. Thanks for Dr. Ghassan Al-Umnipi, the officials of the Ministry of Hajj and Umrah. And now it is time for Q&A. So please report your names and your agency upon delivering your questions. Peace be upon you. My question for both of you: by using digitalizations in Hajj seasons and more of technology being used by the Ministry of Interior that contributed to improve the experience of the pilgrims, please take us through of using this technology and what is the expectations of using it in the future. Thanks for your question. Ministry of Interior is a pioneer in executing the AI application throughout its work using such technology, not this year, but during the past season. Italy, for the first time in an special means and technology, we're launching to reaffirm the status health of the pilgrims and also the technology is a bit different, but its one goal is to maintain the protection of the pilgrims, and the technology or the technologies might not be seen by the media, but works through the Masir platform. As there are several and different throughout all the Ministry of Interior sectors, starting to by the privilege arrivals at the passport representatives through the arrivals through the Maidan application and along with Abshur that it is application is available to explore their identity that would bolster the work of the security persons throughout the applications related to the AI. This 911 is the hotline of smart technologies that provide the residents the digital services within only 2 seconds. Start where you started. That the Hajj season is full of using all technology that to be one of the main pillars through the digital transformations, through several direct applications and through the operating administration. Control and monitoring center is concerned about managing all the operations on the field through a complete center for more or rather many cameras that would help in taking direct decision and by using Nusuk application and its card we hope to be used by more than 20 million users within a very integrated service for a pilgrimage and all connected together to facilitate the operation, to management and to facilitate services to all pilgrimages. Let me just highlight for the pilgrimage to have to use such a technology, given the fact their different cultures and how to educate them, such different application and programs either through Nusuk programs or the field services. Peace be upon you all. From El Watan newspaper, what are the most prominent challenges you faced in the security levels and all the relevant authority in serving the pilgrimage, and how could you tackle them? And thank you. Regardless of the are challenges, but there are responsibilities and duties to be delivered on high levels. Everyone is very witness all the effort in the relevant authority in serving the pilgrimages. Thank you for your question, and I think that the process of developing on the services undergoing as if we are facing challenges, so important that we are showing a full readiness for such that as we started to deliver all the primarily arrangement to the pilgrimage officers, such readiness is the first means in confronting such challenges, in addition to the field digital awareness that are continuing to provide the leverage of their right and different challenges that they might face due to the fatigue of the heat, due to the hot weather. From Elsar channel, I direct my question to the official spokesperson of the Al Hajj and Umrah. Talk us through the most prominent readiness of the Ministry of Hajj, particularly of the first day of the Hajj. The proactive readiness is most significant of our jobs as started to lay down the plans forming communities and teams that work on for more than 600 plans. Such a readiness in facilitate diplomacy today and tomorrow in order to monitor its readiness through different monitoring tools and that exceeded 100 or rather 62,000 visits in following up all the feed operations and direct monitoring for any expected challenges or problems that the plumage would face in order to take the required and correctional measurements. Peace be upon you. Nasser Sulmi, my question to the security spokesperson of Ministry of Interior, as there are efforts for the law enforcement officers, as we've noticed through the digital platform, but there is a humanitarian aspect for them. My question: how could we highlight such scenes in light of all advanced technology? Thank you. I would like to clarify that all the security officers' provisions and that their efforts are doubled and only just hoping to get rewarded by the Almighty God. So it is no problem of taking photos for the ritual places and to be abide with all the regulations by the Ministry of Information, internationally and domestically.
And that was a live conference of the Saudi Interior Ministry on the first day of Hajj. And now we go back to our program In Focus and talking about the two world largest economies. Joining us from Washington is Mr. Justin Thomas Russell, the Executive Director of Global Foreign Policy of Washington. Welcome, sir.
And, thank you for having me, Salma.
Thank you. Considering Trump's description of Xi as being extremely hard to make a deal with, do you think direct contact between the two leaders is a good idea? And if not, what alternative negotiation policy would you recommend could help bridging the growing mistrust between the two countries?
Well, I would tell everybody to take a deep breath, take a cold shower, relax, and come to the table in a couple of weeks. I do not think right now, with the tensions being sparked by both Trump and Xi, by both the administrations in Washington and Beijing, are being conducive to finding a solution to the situation. What recommendation needs to be is they need to take a time out, come back to the table with some good faith diplomatic resolutions, and start from there. What we're seeing is not only are we seeing Washington and Beijing and even Trump and Xi talk past each other, we're seeing no coordination, particularly here in the U.S. The administration is in disarray. We're not seeing Treasury and Commerce and State and the White House talking to each other, and that's causing a messaging problem, which is exacerbating the problem. Everybody needs to hit a reset button right now.
Well, Mr. Russell, in what ways might you think mutual accusations of non-compliance with the Geneva tariff agreement reflect in the sense of deeper structural conflicts between the two countries?
Well, I mean, anybody can say that anybody violated a trade agreement. You know, the second we're off by one dime. Washington can say that Xi in China is violating the Geneva terms, and at the same time, if Xi doesn't release 1 ounce of rare earth materials, then the U.S. starts complaining. This is becoming a matter of he said, she said trade wars, and that never helps anybody. What we're going to see, and by the way, when you involve the defense secretary, as we see Pete Hegseth yesterday talking about China as an imminent threat in Indo-Pacific region, that definitely does not help. And somebody needs to get to Pete Hegseth and rein him in, because all he's doing is adding fuel to the fire.
Well, with ongoing disputes over issues such as China's critical mineral exports and U.S. restrictions on Chinese students, how can both countries, do you think, balance national interests while maintaining a stable bilateral relationship?
Well, they have to realize that we're mutually dependent on each other. This goes back to a theory that the Global Foreign Policy Center has been promoting, and that is the idea of mutually assured economic destruction. It's like the old Russian-U.S. Mutually assured destruction. One fires a nuclear weapon at the other, nuclear war breaks out, nuclear winter, it affects the entire planet. We are in a similar situation where we're getting into a trade war, which escalates. And if the U.S. economy gets hampered because we're not getting cheap goods from the Far East, that then becomes a problem for our economy because we can't make it and we can't get just-in-time logistics to meet the demand. At the same time, China gets into a problem because we're not buying it. We're not sending money over to China. That directly hits their economy. The ripple effect affects Japan, South Korea, Singapore. It affects the EU, London, Canary Wharf, Paris, the DAX, and Germany. All of this has intertwined implications. So what needs to happen is we need to sit down, take a deep breath, hit a reset button, and start over again without putting more exasperation on it.
Well, as the White House press secretary confirmed and announced a potential phone call between Trump and Xi this week, what do you think, Mr. Russell, would the outcomes be? Do you anticipate from that conversation, from that phone call?
That's a really good question, Sal. And the reality is, the only two people who know the outcome of that is going to be Donald Trump and Xi Jinping. The one thing you got to realize is the different dynamics that are involved here with the two personalities. Look, this is not President Xi's first rodeo. We can go all the way back to the 1999-2000 financial crisis here in the United States and the relationship between then Treasury Secretary Hank Paulson and then Finance Minister Xi Jinping. He's a very cool, calm, collected, as we've seen recently in his recent interactions with the international community regarding this trade war. Xi's a very cool and calculated individual. Trump is more emotional. He is more apt to spark off on social media. That poses a problem. That actually kind of gives the upper hand to Xi Jinping in China. We're quickly coming into a situation where we may need them more than they need us. And that's not a good position that we want to be in as a major global economic power.
Well, what are the potential long-term economic and geopolitical consequences, do you think, if the U.S.-China trade dispute remains unresolved or escalates further?
The economic effects are basically we see a global downturn, even worse than what we saw come out of the OECD report that was released a couple of days ago. Instead of 2.5 to 3% GDP reductions, we could see it possibly even go up into high single digit, even low double digit GDP deflation. That is the economic side. The geopolitical side is what we're seeing right now. Is we start seeing an increase in the political rhetoric, between let's say Pete Hegseth and the defense industry in Beijing, or even between Xi and Trump. All that does is heat up the problem, doesn't de-escalate, and nobody's willing to talk or come to the table and work in good faith efforts. That's a bigger problem because that has even much more long-term, or even worse, far more detrimental, such as does it escalate into military action?
Well, that was Justin Thomas Russell. Thank you so much, sir, for joining us, the Executive Director of Global Foreign Policy of Washington. Thank you, sir. Well, I mean, that wraps up our today's episode. And until next time, do stay with us as we bring the world in focus.